Shavua Tov. I see that Torah anytime he's filming me, I'm a little bit camera shy, and but I think I'll deal with it. It's a small crowd. It's an intimate crowd. I had such a wonderful Shabbos here. I met so many wonderful people, and the people that I met reminded me of a great story I want to share with you. I got a call last year from a guy. His name is Eliyav Friedman. Now you might know his brother. He's known by the name Rav Gav. He's here for Shabbos. Now Rav Gav is a brother in Ramat Beit Shemesh. His name is Eliyav Friedman. And Eliyav, when he was a counselor, one of the division heads in Camp Machanaim is a camp in Israel. He told me he got up on a chair, first day of camp, and he was speaking to the staff. And he said to the staff the following. He said, look, I want all of you to make sure to look out if there's any boy who feels lonely, who feels sidelined, maybe feels rejected. I want you to go over to that kid and make sure to go buy him a potato chips, Snapple in the canteen, have a back and forth, shoot some hoops with him, have a catch with him. And he tells them the following. He says, you know why? Because when I was a little boy, I went to a camp called Camp Morris. And I was very, very lonely. And I felt really rejected. And I remember that there was one guy. He was on the staff. He was one of the division heads. He came over to me. His name is Ezi Fireworker. Now, I was davening Shachris this morning. And everybody's supposed to wear their name tags. And right in front of me was a man, Mr. Fireworker. I said, Mr. Fireworker, is Ezi your son? He said, yes. I said, that's amazing. So Ezi's father is here for Shabbos. So Ezi was the counselor. He was a division head in Camp Morris. And Ezi took care of Eliyav Friedman. And Eliyav is telling all the staff members over there, and he says, I want you to know that Ezi Fireworker changed my summer and changed my life. So therefore, I want to tell you, if you see one boy who feels rejected, feels lonely, go over to him. Ask him if he needs a Snapple, maybe have a catch. I'll pay for it, no problem. So the owner of Camp Machanaim was present at the meeting, at the staff meeting. His name is Rabbi Goldstein. And he listens to Eliyav Friedman's fiery speech. And he thinks to himself, wow, I wonder if Ezi Fireworker knows this story. Does he know the impact he had on Eliyav Friedman for so many years that now, 20 years later, Eliyav Friedman is division head at Camp Machanaim, is sharing the story and encouraging everybody else to go and reach out. He decides to look up Ezi Fireworker's name. He looks up Ezi Fireworker's name, finds his number, and he calls him up and he says, Ezi, you don't even know who I am. My name is Rabbi Goldstein. I have a camp in Israel called Camp Machanaim. I want to tell you a story. And he proceeds to tell him the Eliyav Friedman story. And he says, do you remember this boy? And as he says, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember a guy Ezi Fireworker because I did this to every single kid who I saw was lonely. And Rabbi Goldstein says, really? He says, yes, that's what I did. He says, really, why? So I'll tell you the truth, because when I was a kid in Camp Aguda, says, I felt so lonely, I felt so rejected, that there was one guy, I remember, I'll never forget this, he says, there was one guy who came over to me. It was a Friday afternoon. I remember I put down the phone with my sister. I called to say good Shabbos to my parents, and my grandparents were rushed, my grandmother was rushed to the hospital, my parents were in the hospital, I couldn't get a hold of them, and I was crying. I felt really sad, I felt really bad. And there was one person in Camp Aguda that came over to me, and really brought me, into his bungalow, gave me something to eat, schmoozed with me, and really changed my summer. So Rabbi Goldstein says, wow, that is amazing. I wonder if that guy knows the ripple effect that he caused that led Ezi Fireworker to impact Eliyav Friedman's life, that now is leading to impact the entire staff in Camp Machanaim. She says, could you please tell me his name so I can call him and let him know? He says, well, I don't know if you ever heard of him. His name is Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky. He says, Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky, you mean like the Rosh Yeshiva of Philadelphia? He says, yeah. He says, back in the 90s, late 80s, Camp Aguda, they used to host for Shabbos, Rosh Yeshiva, they still do it today. And Rav Shmuel came for Shabbos, and he was there that Friday. He noticed my face, he noticed I was downtrodden, I was sad, and he brought me into his bungalow. Now, I spoke to Elia Friedman, and I spoke to Ezzy Fireworker, so I sort of know the story is true, but I never spoke to Rav Shmuel until last year. I had a chance to introduce Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky at the Chafetz Chaim Heritage Foundation Convention, which was in Stamford, Connecticut, not in this hotel, different hotel. And Erev Shabbos, Rav Shmuel was going to speak. He's the Zakan Rosh Yeshivas. And the story I introduced him with was this story. And I wondered out loud in front of 1,500 people, I said, Rosh Yeshiva, do you remember Ezzy Fireworker? And of course, Rav Shmuel, he nodded his head. I don't know if he did remember, he just tried to save my face because I was asking him in public. But either way, it's a verified story. What you have to take away is that you never know. It's unbelievable how one act of kindness, if you're in school and you see somebody who's alone and you include him in a game, that's all you have to do. You could change his year, you could change his life. And that ripple effect is just unbelievable. I want to tell you one more story. Still have 3 minutes left. I have a cousin, his name is Frank Mendel. Now Frank Mendel he used to be a criminal lawyer, and now he's in real estate. So he told me a few months ago, he said that he has a business partner by the name of Chaim Kaufman. He lives in Borough Park. And they were on their way to Dallas, Texas, leaving from Newark Airport. They were going at...
Just we know each other.
You know Chaim?
Chaim.
You know Chaim. Okay. So there you know. Now you can verify the story. So Chaim Kaufman and Frank Mendel are sitting on an American Airlines flight in Newark Airport waiting to depart. Okay? The pilot gets onto the intercom, onto the loudspeaker, and he says, everybody please turn off all of your electronic devices. We're about to take off. And as soon as Chaim hears electronic devices, immediately he reaches his hand into his pocket. He takes out his cell phone, and Frank says, Chaim, what are you doing? You're supposed to turn off all of your electronic devices. And Chaim says, no, you don't understand. I have to make a really important call. It'll take me just a few minutes. But as soon as Chaim puts his hand into his pocket, he lets out a shriek, and he says, Oy vey! Frank says, what's going on? He says, you're not going to believe this. I forgot my phone at the charging station by the gate. Now, you kids should know about these things, but today, some people have their whole lives on their phone. So that means they were going to a business meeting in Dallas, and they had all the contact information. Everything was on that cell phone. He says, I don't have my cell phone. I forgot at the charging station at the gate. And there was a flight attendant who I spoke with. His name is Steve Cooley. Steve in American Airlines is walking past Chaim Kaufman. And Chaim grabs his arm and he says, Chaim! He says, Mr. Flight Attendant, can you please help me? I forgot my phone at the charging station. I don't know what to do. I need it. So this guy Steve says, hang in there 1 second. He disappears into the cockpit, and 3 minutes later, around a few minutes later, he comes back out. He walks over to Chaim Kaufman, sitting in an aisle seat, and he hands him his cell phone and his charger. Now, the plane was already inching out. So Chaim turns to him and he says, how did you get my phone? So listen to this. So Steve tells him, he says, I went to the pilot. The pilot was in touch with the air traffic controller at the tower. And the air traffic controller at the tower let the person call the gate, and there was a fellow at the gate who was closing shop, and let the fellow at the gate know that there's somebody on the flight who forgot his cell phone at the charging station. So the fellow ran to the charging station, grabbed the phone, ran out into the tarmac, and noticed a guy driving a truck with a scissor lift. A scissor lift is, you know, those trucks that they put the food onto the plane. Lifts up, and he's waving the phone and the charger on the tarmac, and he says, you see that plane, flight number 3005? It's about to take off to Dallas, Texas. There's a guy on that flight, forgot this phone. Could you somehow get the phone to this guy? So this guy in the scissor lift, incredible, he takes the phone, zooms over to the plane, and he lifts up the lift, And you never knew this. The cockpit window can open. Do you know that? The cockpit window opens up. And he lifts up the lift, and he throws the phone and the charger into the cockpit. And the pilot takes it. The pilot gives it to Steve Cooley, and Steve Cooley gives it back to Chaim Kaufman.
Why?
I mean, if I wouldn't have spoken to the flight attendant, I would not have believed this. This is just unbelievable. Now, as he gets the phone back, Frank turns to Chaim, and Frank says, you know, if you hadn't reached into your pocket and wanted to make that call, you probably would have remembered when it was too late. So who's that important call? Who did you want to call? So Chaim says, I have an elderly mother. She lives by herself. My father passed away a few years ago. And every night, I call my mother to say goodnight. So tonight, I remembered as the plane was about to take off, I forgot to call my mother to say goodnight. But when I tell over the story, I ask people, I say, how many people did it take to return Chaim Kaufman's phone onto that almost moving plane? It was inching out of the gate. And the answer is, let's see if we can come up with a cheshbon. 10. Okay? Anybody else? You have Steve Cooley, the flight attendant. You have the pilot. You have the guy at the gate. The air traffic controller is 4. And then the scissor lift, the truck driver as well. So you have 5 guys.
I was just going to say 5.
You were going to say 5. Excellent.
I didn't know what you really said.
Excellent, but it was a good guess.
No. I went back to the other guy who gave it to him.
Oh, then he went to the other guy, gave it to him. Okay, so it's 6? So how much is it?
He went to the pilot and Steve.
It's Steve, the pilot. Pilot contacted the air traffic controller at the tower, right? And then he contacted the guy at the gate, and then the scissor lift truck driver. So it's 5? Yeah?
Then he gave it to Steve.
But Steve is the same guy, so Steve is 1. Okay, but it's great. So it's 5 guys. And guys, I remember the pasuk, and I'm going to finish with this. It says in Parshas B'chukoisai that in times of peace, it says, Chamisha mikem meir yerdaifu. It says that 5 people will be able to chase away 100. 5. Yeah? Our Chaim Kadosh asks, are you kidding me? 5 against 100? That's impossible. 5 people can chase away 100? If you have 100 on one side and 5 on the other side, who do you think is going to win?
5 and 5.
If you have 105, who's going to win?
100.
100, right? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, what do you say? Amazing. The Chashmonaim, they were the beautiful. Fantastic. So you have a 5 against 100. It's a miracle that the Chashmonaim won. Is that right? You need a miracle to win if it's 5 against 100, right? Chaim HaKadosh says, how's that possible? You know what he says?
Right, that's what
Yeah, but there was like thousands of Greeks, right? They were outnumbered. Excellent. What's your name, by the way? Fantastic. Okay, beautiful. You know what the Chaim HaKadosh says? He says a few psukim earlier, it says 3 words. V'nasati shalom ba'aretz. He says, you know what v'nasati shalom ba'aretz means? It means that I will put peace in Eretz Yisrael amongst us. It doesn't mean there will be a peace from the nations, but it means there will be a peace amongst ourselves. And if we get along, and if everybody has a defined role, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing, then yes, then 5 could beat 100. If you work like a team, everybody's working like a team, nobody's competing, we're including everybody, we give everybody a job, everybody has a defined role, then yes, you can even return a phone onto a moving airplane, American Airlines. Excellent. Isn't that amazing? It's such a pleasure speaking to you guys. Thank you.